Field of 68 Media Network. I'm your host, Dan Dickau, for the Bulldog broadcast. Well, I want to first off say thank you to our first of to be more sponsors, supporting sponsor McGilvery Environmental. Thank you for their support of the Bulldog broadcast as we recap week one and we begin to release more shows and talk about this upcoming season. But first off, what a week one for Gonzaga. Go 2-0 in the first week. Both games in Spokane. Yes, the first game against Baylor at the Spokane Arena. Electric atmosphere, near capacity crowd. They got production across the board in their big time win, 101 to 63. Some of the things that I really liked in regards to how they played that night was just defensively. I thought they were terrific. I would say 40-minute game, clearly about 34 minutes defensively was really good. And for that to be your first effort against a really good Big 12 opponent, a team that's looking to go deep in the NCAA tournament, a team that should challenge for a Big 12 title with talent across the board, that was really, really good to see. I think, when you look at their activity on the defensive end, they're flying around, their ability to cut off dribble penetration, their ability to battle in the glass, their ability to be in the gaps defensively and make everything difficult was tremendous. You know, that being said, 37% field goal defense. They forced Baylor to being only 3 of 21 from the 3-point line. Now you can look at it on the flip side a little bit and say, hey, Gonzaga had all their turners. They're adding very talented, experienced pieces. Yes, I get that. Yes, I get that Baylor has had 9 or 10 newcomers to their roster, including 2 really good freshmen, BJ Edgecombe and Robert Wright. Sorry, those guys were pretty well limited by Gonzaga. Wright had a couple stretches where it looked like he could have got loose and really gotten going, but they did a good job on him. But they really did a good job on BJ Edgecombe. He's talked about as a possible top 5 pick. He did have the play of the night, though, the viral dunk on Joe Few, which is still making its rounds about 6-7 days later. It was that impressive of a play, but they did a really good job on him. Norchad Ormir, he presented some problems on the glass a little bit. I think he ended up with 9 offensive rebounds, but he's going to do that to everybody in the Big 12. He's that good. I thought Gonzaga did a pretty good job on Jeremy Roach, the transfer point guard from Duke, but to focus on Gonzaga and what they did, I mean, holy cow, there were bright spots all over the roster throughout that game. They came out with energy, came out moving the ball on offense, looking to get that ball side to side and then, punish Baylor on the interior. Because Gonzaga, when they're at their best, they're pushing the ball up the floor, they're getting the ball side to side, and then they're getting into high-low actions, big to big, or they're coming off pick and rolls and then finding the mismatch many times on the roll, forcing switches, and then that little swivel pass where they dump it down to the interior where they've got plenty of guys who can go to work. I mean, if you just go through the roster and throughout these first few episodes, I'm going to kind of break down the roster a little bit more in regards to what I've seen from last year to this year and where maybe some of their growth areas can be accentuated this season. But Graham Ike, quiet start, but he was really consistent throughout the night. 15 points, 8 rebounds. You're seeing a little bit more fluidity in his athleticism, and that's what spending over a year now with Gonzaga's athletic staff of Travis Knight, the strength coach, and everybody can do that, coupled with being a full year past an injury where he missed a full year of playing at Wyoming. I think you're going to see a more fluid athlete in Graham Ike. Ryan Emhart was terrific against Baylor, 11 assists with 0 turnovers. When you get that kind of play from your point guard, the decision making, which is what we saw the second half of last year, that really bodes well. I thought Braden Huff was spectacular off the bench, 14 points in only 16 minutes. He's just a bucket getter. I think you will see improved athleticism from him, in particular on the defensive end of the floor. And then the ability to quickly get into dribble handoffs. I think that's something you're going to see from him this year. But, I mean, he was really good against Baylor. Dusty Stromer, I thought, was terrific in his first stretch in that first half. Back-to-back threes really kind of juiced and energized, excuse me, that crowd to really get them going and start to build that lead in the first half. Cliff battle, we talked about at length with different former players, with different analysts that look, at times Gonzaga misses or has missed that wing with size, with athleticism, with pop to be able to go get a bucket when things break down. He can do that, but he can do it in different ways. He can get to the rim, he can get out transition, he gets fouled and he makes his free throws. He can get to the mid range and knock that down, but I think he really showed his offensive firepower in that middle of that second half when I think he hit 3 threes in about a 90-second span, and they all came off different ways. I think two of them, if I'm not mistaken, were catch and shoot threes. One of them was in isolation where he just created a lot of space on a step back. So really good stuff from him. I think, Michael Ajayi, a lot of people were interested to see how he was going to work. Was he going to start? Was he not going to start? I really love him in that sixth man role. He absolutely impacted that game in 22 minutes, 9 points, 8 rebounds. But he can guard at the college level. He can guard 1 through 5. You don't have to run a play for him. He's active on the glass. Defensively, as mentioned, he's so versatile. His length, his toughness. He doesn't back down from anybody. Saw that against Baylor. We also saw that from him against Arizona State. I've now had a chance to talk to a lot of NBA scouts, and they feel he is the best pro prospect on this roster, and I fully agree because, again, he's a guy you don't have to run a play for, but then at the end of the night, you look up, and he's impacted the game across the board on the stat sheet, scoring, rebounding, steals. There's going to be nights where he gets multiple blocks, so really good stuff from him.
Thank you to our presenting sponsors. If you have interest in joining the Bulldog broadcast, the Field of 68 Media Network, for being a sponsor, don't hesitate to reach out to me, Dan Dickau, at hotmail.com. Presenting sponsor, McGilvery Environmental can handle any of your construction needs, specializing in new construction, repairs, residential and commercial asphalt paving, excavation, environmental remediation, and hazardous waste. Reach out to Kip McGilvery at McGilvery Environmental today at 208-556-6384 for your free estimate.
After game one, you look and you say, this team is Final Four good, because Baylor's going to be good. They have their things that they're going to have to work through with all the newcomers. They're going to have their battles throughout the Big 12. They're going to improve. But to do what they did against Baylor in opening night was awesome. 101-63 win again, production across the board. But I think it makes you think that Gonzaga is Final Four good. Now, I'm not saying they're going to make the Final Four. I got to see a little bit more there, and I got to see a little bit more of the lay of the land in regards to who looks good. And at this point, Auburn looks good. Alabama looks good. Kansas looks good. I mean, there's so many directions you could take this. I think there's a legit probably 9, maybe 10 teams that you could say that about at this point in the year before you really start seeing which teams have a long ramp to improve, see which ones are kind of fool's gold early in the season where maybe they're better early than their potential allows them to be late. But great stuff in that first game. Second game against Arizona State, wasn't expecting the dogfight and only winning by, I think it was 8 points. Wasn't quite expecting that. I actually called Arizona State's second game on Friday night against Santa Clara in Las Vegas, and they were a completely different team against Santa Clara than they were against Gonzaga. And I think some of the concerns I had for Gonzaga against Arizona State was just their size and length and athleticism, defensively in particular, protecting the rim with Jaden Quaintance, Bashid Jihad, and then Sean Phillips Jr. I think those guys did pose some problems at times, but I think offensively they were much more disciplined against Gonzaga than they were against Santa Clara, and even in their first game of the year against Idaho State, where they only went home by, I think it was 4. But when you looked at it, this is another test against a very long, athletic, talented team in Arizona State that's, I think, going to provide dividends for Gonzaga down the road because, again, you're battling that length on the interior, and Gonzaga handled it well. They won the glass, um, but I think they also uh, because of how Arizona State plays on the offensive end. They were much more disciplined than they were in their first two games, but they ran actions and they spaced it, find the guy they want to go at, and they really attacked you off the dribble. And I think Alston Mason proved that and showed that. There were a few times Gonzaga got caught late in rotations to free up open shots or late to get in the gap, so then a guy could fully get an angle and an attack by a guy. But all in all, when you come out with a win, you've been able to kind of be pushed. That's going to help progress you through this month in November when you've got some other big games in Atlantis, in the Bahamas. Then you've got a huge month of December with some great opponents, UCLA, UConn, Kentucky. Those are all games that those three opponents should be top 25. UConn and Kentucky might be top 10 ranked games at that time. So huge opportunities on the boards. But, I thought ASU brought the fight early. They gained confidence because they played well early, and then they never quit, which quite frankly wasn't the case for Arizona State last year. Talking to Bobby Hurley on Friday before that Santa Clara game, he likes this team. He didn't like the way they competed in their exhibition game against Duke. He didn't like the way that they shot the basketball against Idaho State. But before that Santa Clara game, he was really high on this group. And I think, now I'm not going to say they're going to challenge for the Big 12, but I do think they're going to surprise some people in the Big 12 because I think their road to improvement is pretty good. So all in all, I think that's a really good win for Gonzaga. Again, I don't think their defense was as good, but I think, a lot of that had to do with Arizona State's patience. That they didn't have those first two games. Like I said, they spread it and attacked. Other positives for Gonzaga, they were +9 on the game, and they only had 8 turnovers against the length, athleticism, and pressure of Arizona State. So those are all good things. I think the other thing you're saying, there's a clear 8-man rotation for Gonzaga off the bench. Ajayi, Stromer, and Huff, and those have all been really good to start this season. In particular, Huff was impressive against Arizona State. 21 points, 9 of 13 from the field. Patience on the low block when he caught it, back you down, get to your spots. Finished over the rim a couple times. Nembhard was really good again. 13 and 11, 0 assists for the second game in a row against really high pressure defenses. Michael Ajayi again was really good. 9 points, 12 rebounds, best NBA prospect, just because you don't have to run a play for him. Battle was really good again, impressive on that lob dunk. It shows you, when one guy doesn't have it, this team's got the firepower to pick the team up in other ways. So if I were to pick a player of the week, there really wasn't one, but I could go Ajayi, I could go Nembhard, I could go Battle, I could go Huff. But maybe if I really was pressed on it, I probably would lean towards Huff just because I thought he was so good against Arizona State and so efficient. Looking to this upcoming week, going to have a conversation with Brian Michelson that will release hopefully before the UMass Lowell game, which is on Friday. UMass Lowell is a little bit of a surprise. They were predicted second in the America East, a team that has 4 returning starters, so they're very experienced. They play a style defensively that they're going to switch a lot, very little zone, but they're going to switch a lot because they've got kind of bigs at 6'8", 6'9", who can move their feet well enough. They've got aggressive attacking wings. So you're going to see a lot of switching. But they had 20 wins a season ago, returned 4 starters. They've got some really good players on their roster. So I don't think this is a game you're going to look at and say, we're penciled in, we're going to go win this game by 40. Now, they could win this game by 40 if they have the overall execution like they had against Baylor. But American East team UMass Lowell is going to be a lot better than the average fan is going to expect. So, at this point of the season, it's all about get wins, move forward, preferably quad one, quad twos, which Baylor's going to be a quad one win. Arizona State will probably end up being a quad two win, which is still really good. And then don't have any slip ups in that quad three and quad fours, which Gonzaga really has not done over the years. I think they had one quad three loss a season ago, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a matter of, and it's so crazy to think mentioning quad one, quad two this early in the season, but it's stack those quad one, quad twos, and stay away from negative quad three losses or disasters of quad fours this early in the season. But all in all, great first week. Again, later on this week on the Bulldog broadcast, we will be bringing you a conversation with Brian Michelson, associate head coach of Gonzaga. We might even be getting Stephen Gentry on as well, but really want to preview that UMass Lowell game and then look forward to next week and some of the other upcoming games, which include Long Beach State, San Diego State on CBS Sports Network, which I'll be on the call with. Rich Waltz will be next Monday, hoping to get a conversation with Brian Dutcher or their lead assistant, David Velasquez. But big games coming up for Gonzaga here in the very near future, but a terrific first week for Gonzaga. So for the Field of 68 Media Network, thanks again for listening.